You're listening to Planksty, a podcast exploring the rich tapestry of Irish dance and the community who loves it. Hosted by Julia Topper, ethnomusicologist, Irish dancer, music educator, and writer, and Christo Sween, a 20-year Irish dance dad, live camera director for Fesh TV, and operations manager at the Celtic Junction Arts Center. Hello from the airport.
You guys are finally done taking down all the stages.
Man, it was a huge undertaking. I'll tell you, I have a brand new appreciation for when we roll up to a venue and all of that stuff is set up already. We had to build that whole thing on both of those stages. You know, these big giant crank systems for the truss, but it was a ton of work, but
I can imagine.
Boy, it was great. I thought the whole thing was great. I had such a great time doing it, and even though it was this sort of back-breaking scenario at the end, like we were there until 1 a.m. Last night, and then we're up, had breakfast together, had a good team feed, and then and we're out of there by 1 o'clock this afternoon. So I mean,
Not
all
bad.
in all, it was pretty good.
I remember you got there a few days early to start setting up for the Worlds, didn't you?
We were there.
Yeah.
I flew in the Wednesday before, and we were set up Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we needed every single day to do it too, because it's just so much. Yeah, it was.
It's a gargantuan task.
Yeah, but such a great team, and to be called upon for a little bit more than what we usually do with Fesh TV and with taking care of sound and lights. It was several extra pieces, but I mean, that's everybody kind of put in several extra pieces to make the whole thing work. So I'm really glad it came together as well as it did.
Well, everything looked and sounded fabulous.
Great.
It was the world's atmosphere.
Yeah,
it really was. It was very cool.
Yeah, it felt great, and I liked how there was so much community opportunity. I thought that during the day, that practice stage and entertainment area, the square, was really cool, and that big practice stage was really nice. And then moving music up to the lobby was some extra work, right? So then we sort of basically added another sound system and stage lights to the scenario. But man, it was
it was so
fun.
good. I think that fun. Obviously we're all there for the dance competitions and whatnot, but that having that music and the ceilidh dancing and just the spontaneous dancing in the evenings, honestly, was just some of the most joyful moments that I've seen in the Irish dance community. In my time coming to these events, it was just absolutely fabulous. And I know, talking to folks who have been in the scene for a while, they've said that this used to be something that used to be featured pretty regularly at Worlds, but kind of gotten away from it. So I really hope it comes back again, because just watching Kana play and looking out in the audience, there was this huge range from folks with sashes on, still with their wigs on, right? Little itty bitty kids. There was this one little girl who was just dead set on dancing as much as she possibly could. It was great. I don't know how old she was, maybe 3 or 4. And, there was her, there were TCs, there were former world champs, there were Fesh dads, there were Fesh moms, there were TCs that were getting up and doing steps. And it didn't matter who you were. Everyone was just getting up and dancing together. And, the ceilidh that was on, what was that? That was Friday night. Or no, Saturday night, excuse me. That was so much fun. I got pulled into a bunch of dances too. And it was fabulous. It was really so much fun.
It was great.
Yeah. And I mean, I got to do social media coverage for Irish Dance Globe. And I had done a little bit last year for them, but this was my my first time. We said, I'm going to get in there on Tuesday and we're going, and I loved every second of it. I got to talk to everybody from former principal dancers for Riverdance to newly graduated TCs and kids that were doing ceilidh on a world stage for the first time and world champions, and everyone was so generous with their time and just lovely to talk to. it was wonderful. I got to finally meet Oda Harrigan in person, and she is the woman behind the World Medal Holder Times Zero account on Instagram. She makes all these hysterical memes,
so
and
funny.
she's so funny. And we've seen each other at events before, and it's always from across the room, and we're both on a mission elsewhere, and so we've never actually gotten a chance to sit down and talk. And we actually got to, and she was the other person doing social media coverage for Irish Dance Globe. So we got to hang out and chat, and getting to see kind of the antics that she got into, talking to people, and some of the hysterical interviews that she did, which I think they're still coming up by the time this interview comes out. I think we're still rolling out a few things, but all of it was just a great experience.
Yeah,
it
was. It was great. I had just stumbled across the one where she was talking with Zach Warshaw, who, by the way, so I'm in the airport, like I said, and I come to a spot where I'm not sitting surrounded by people because I don't want to be talking, like I hate it when I'm on sitting at an airport and somebody's on a meeting right next to me.
Yeah.
I don't need to sit next to that. But anyway, so I found this sort of hallway that was quiet and lots of overhead announcements, just in general at the airport. But the voice that came over as soon as I sat down sounded just like Zach Warshaw.
That's very funny.
And I'm just like, I didn't have the wherewithal to record it, and hear, because it never came back on. But it was just like going. But then I'm like, did it? Or
are you starting to hallucinate? Is it just a week of having him in your ear?
Tired, right? Right. He did such a great job.
He really did. Yeah, he really did.
But yeah, talking about, all other, past announcers and Dan, and, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was good. So I was glad to see that she was there. I thought, as much of the dancing as I could see, I spent most of my time, in the dark side stage, monitoring a stream. I was mostly on Hall B, and so I saw a lot of what was going on there. And man, the dancing was so good. It was so fun to watch.
Good. It was so cool because it's obviously top tier, music and dancing from start to finish. But then we get to see also the dance dramas. And I had a friend that was she was in Inish Carta's dance drama. It was her and her fellow adult dancers from Inish Carta, and they took third place. And they were so good. They were the best trees ever. And they were phenomenal. The freestyle event was phenomenal.
So cool.
And I was so excited to, the stories, I think every year that happens, they're getting more and more creative. And the women in particular, I felt like this year really branched out with their stories and their characters.
I thought so too.
Yeah, and it was, different sides of femininity than I think we've seen in the past, and warriors, and there was a story about breaking out of conformity, and there was, a story about kind of dealing with the mundane things of life and just actually wanting to dance. So it was really neat to see all these different aspects come in. And honestly, I would say to anyone that if you ever have a Worlds that's relatively close to you, it's worth going and seeing in person at least once.
I agree.
It really is. It's an experience unlike anything else.
Right. It's funny because I have had experiences where we're sharing the news with folks that, hey, we're going to go to a fesh this weekend, or we're going to, Majors is, Oireachtas is in Minneapolis, so we're going to be involved in that. And I've had people before ask, like, oh, can we come and see, can we come and see your kid dance? And I'm like, well, you'll spend 5 hours waiting to see 6 minutes of dancing. But man, Worlds is something else.
It's really something else. And especially I think for folks that, if you're in a studio where you're not getting to see, a Worlds level dancer on a regular basis, or perhaps you're in an age group that isn't necessarily included in the, the Worlds categories yet. It's such a good learning experience to get to go up there and see not just this flawless execution of technique, but the performance aspect of it is really phenomenal. And it's really worth going and seeing. And if you can't go and see it, and I swear this is not a plug for Fesh TV, but it's going to be a plug for Fesh TV, you should get Fesh TV, because you learn from it. One of the ways that I have learned as much about dance as I have has been sitting and watching. Field work is observation participation, and I've done a lot of observation, and a lot of it has been at majors like this. So it's just such a cool experience. Very
I feel very proud of the work that we do Fesh TV, and hearing stories like what you just said, like people actually go back and look at it and review and learn and teach from it. It's nice that it's there and it exists. In fact, I don't know if the woman who talked to me from that team that took third in the dance drama is the friend, but she chatted with me on stage because I was on beat waiting for them to be done so I could turn the lights off and get some dinner. But she mentioned like she just thought Fesh TV was great and it was such a great asset to the whole community, not just personally for her, but yeah, I do feel very proud of the work that we did.
Amy Mae Dolan was amazing. Also, just want to shout out to her.
She was so
fun. She was
fun.
phenomenal. I got to talk to her briefly for Irish Dance Globe, and she was such a genuine person and so generous with her time. And I got a chance to talk to her a little bit separate from that, and just absolutely lovely. And she did a wonderful job hosting during the week.
Yeah, just an incredibly humble, high capacity person. Like, just
absolutely
seems like things come easy to her, but they come easy to her because she works at everything. She prepared so much to do that.
I'm sure
it was really impressive to see.
That's very cool.
It's like no wonder she's as good as she is at dancing. It is. Yeah, she was great, and just a nice person and a good friend and a good member of the team. It is, and that's we talk about that a lot, and we talked about it in the conversation with Cormac and Natalie in part one, or maybe it's part two. I can't remember now, but here comes part two pretty soon here. But the team that we work with is unique, and everyone brings differing special talents to the mix. And of course, that's just the way things go in the Irish dance world as well, in particular with teams and Kayleys and the dance dramas and figures. Obviously that's where teams are, but schools are teams too. Like, they operate in a way where they're all sort of coaching and supporting and caring for and lifting up other people. They should be anyway, lifting up other people, in their school. It's just, I just feel lucky to be involved in this universe. It's really wild. It's really wonderful. It's very nice. Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah. Good.
Well, shall we move to part two of our conversation with Natalie and Cormac?
It's funny. You'll hear at the end of the episode that of this part two that we joked about making it a two-parter, and it just had to happen that way. Like, part of it is it was a pretty long and robust conversation. So I'm excited to get to the next part of it, where we dig a little deeper into teaching and understand more about what's going on at the Celtic Junction Arts Center and just around the community there too. Like that the community existed and the Celtic Junction existed, and the community informs the Celtic Junction and the Celtic Junction informs the community. And it's just really cool.
Good. And I guess this would be an appropriate place to mention too that congratulations to the O'Shea School of Irish Dance that is housed within the Celtic Junction, because your senior mixed Cayley team came in
second in the world.
Amazing.
Only. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's pretty cool. And
cool.
I'm especially happy because my son Henry danced on that team, and
top gent.
Top gent was one of the older dancers on the team with Kira, and the two of them worked super hard to encourage and run and coach that entire group of dancers. It was nice to see.
Really
they
cool.
should be proud of themselves as well. So I'm super happy for them. So thanks for that plug.
Yeah,
as well.
Of course.
So,
well, it's
my
cool.
hype man today. I like it.
I'm on it. Man. Well, congrats to everybody who attended the Worlds this week, whether you were top of the box or perhaps attending for the first time. You all should be incredibly proud of the work you put in. Teachers, you should all be incredibly proud of yourselves as well. It's such a pressure cooker in a lot of ways, but it's phenomenal to see everybody showing up every day, doing the best they can. And now hopefully you all are drinking a lot of water and getting some naps.
I'm a little dry myself. I'll get a bottle before I get on the airplane. It'll be nice.
I got home last night at 12:30, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And fell into bed. And I teach early childhood music classes at my daughter's pre-K. I had 7 classrooms of 2-year-olds through 5-year-olds. So I had slept for 6 hours and got up and sang Icky Sticky Bubblegum.
Yep.
So,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice. That's
just
good.
get back to work, you know?
Yep. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. So, yeah, I'll get a snack and a bottle of water, and
There you go.
I imagine, I might take a nap on the airplane.
Do it.
I feel like I should edit this intro so we can publish the next episode, but I really feel like I should maybe take care of myself and take a nap and, have some water. And anyway, but yeah, here we go with part 2 with Cormac O'Shea and Natalie Nugent O'Shea. It was a fun conversation, and this part 2 is interesting. It's fun to dig into. So
hope you enjoy it.
Here we go.
I want to go back to what you were both talking about with this pressure. I think that both for teaching kids and for adults who are learning and starting, and this pressure that comes to get something immediately, to move quickly, to get the medals, to get the trophies, to have perfect footwork, immediately. And I know this is something that I find a lot in my piano teaching. This concept of needing to go slow, this concept of needing, it's years of practice, right? Like you might need to spend a year just going like this with your foot to get your treble to hit the floor, right? To make the good sound. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about that, how you, I don't want to say combat maybe, but how you work with that sort of need to push and how you help dancers slow themselves down a little bit. Natalie, you were talking about that somatic experience, that connective experience. I was wondering if you could maybe give some examples of how you go about that in your classes.
It's all repetition and drills. And, kids, you roll your eyes as soon as you hear either one of those words. It's like practicing math problems. You have to practice again and again and again. And if you approach it, that way, nobody's going to want to do it. So, making it a discovery, making it fun. One of the ironies is, I think, I'll demonstrate it, and I'll get, like I said, I teach many different ways. Try and think, well, how does this child need to hear this information, and try and help them move parts of their body that maybe they haven't moved before, and then control parts of the body that they maybe haven't controlled before. So it goes through this whole gamut of different drills and exercises and things. But the key that I found is this: okay, this is what this needs to look like. This is what it needs to sound like. This is how you say it to yourself. So we talk about using all of our senses. And now when you go towards the mirror, you also get to look at it. When you come away from the mirror, guess what? You just have to feel it. Practice feeling that, and what are your other senses that can come into that, and then give them a chance to go and make the mistakes. And I tell them, you get to go as slow as you want. So I love using animated films that go slower to go faster, is from Cars, right? Lightning McQueen and the old sheriff car. And then my other one is that Speak Whale, like Dory. What is
yeah.
It's just loud and slow, and they think that's hysterical. And if you can show them that, 1, adults aren't perfect either. 2, we know how to be silly. 3, we're in this journey with you. Go take those chances. And so I let them speak whale. And if it's a leap, 2, 3, that is what is acceptable. And you give them room to make mistakes. One of the very first things I do when I meet brand new kids is we practice falling down. So that doesn't feel like a mistake. So many of these they are terrified of making a mistake. There's something in our society and there's something in the water. And I said, you guys, all dancers fall. We're going to practice falling. And we do that together. And then that's not an issue. And then they can try big things, right? And it's been one of the funny things, and I'll do it with them, go careening onto the floor. They think that's hysterical for an adult to do that. And then they get to go speak well, and they get to do as slow as they want. And the other thing I'll do is we get to do it. You have to get it 5 times right. So we'll count 1, think about it, practice 2, think about it, practice 3, and they have to get to 5. And if any point they get it wrong, we go back to 0. start again, just like learning a scale.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so giving them space, and so you can do that learning an instrument, you can do that practicing math, you can do that spelling a word. This is a lesson for life, not just for Irish dancing.
So interesting you mentioned the falling down on the weekend here. We had a dance competition, and in particular, very young child who there's several kids have been through the class. We know the family very well. And the first time she was dancing, she fell down. And she just popped right back up and continued. And then she fell down again. The judge just said, "You get another go. You can." So she just toddled on back, waited till the end of the line, came out with the next group. And as it happened, she fell down one more time. Not a bother on her, not a tear.
Amazing.
Not a stress about it. It's just like she was equipped that this happens in the world and it's all okay. It's just we have a societal pressure at this point where kids just, the more they can be isolated and just allowed to be and develop into the little human that they're going to develop into without a gaze, without a camera, without a focus, without being posted, without being, like there's some magical force they're supposed to be, or standard they're supposed to be living up to, instead of just let's put one foot in front of the other and live Tuesday, and get on, and maybe tomorrow's better.
Right. I talk about it as sort of, we live in a striver society, and striving is okay. But like Natalie, you were describing like what to strive for, what to practice for. You don't practice for perfection, but as you're practicing, you better be good. You better be practicing the right way. So yeah, it's hard to separate that, I imagine.
Yeah.
That's the duality of it.
Yeah.
We want to strive for excellence, but you have to give yourself grace. And, our job as good educators, as good parents, as good humans is to help internalize. And that's where the greater growth comes from. It's the discipline. You get that character, you get resilience, you know how to fail and try again, you know how to solve problems, you know how to be.
I've liked what I've been able to observe, having my kids involved in your school for almost the entire time it's been in existence, to be able to see, at least in my own kids as a dance parent, that they're developing this community. Cormac and I have talked about this as well. Like, they hold each other accountable in a way that is kind of remarkable. They're very candid with each other. This group, these cohorts that form, through dance and through the performances, have this level of maturity that you don't necessarily see, and I'm not trying to make Irish dance out to be this solution for every kid and their interpersonal dynamics. But, in my experience, it's pretty interesting to watch them coach each other, support each other, not tear each other down, but criticize, like
challenge.
You could challenge, right?
I think in the case of, I mean, I know I know who you're referring to, Christo, and they all come at it in different ways, but the common ground they have is that no matter whether they succeeded or not in whoever's eyes, or no matter whether they got it perfect or not, they were all the same. And they all lived through it, and they all came out the other side, and they weren't, they're not favorites, they're not. And they found this common bond by coexisting in an environment where it was challenging, but they challenged each other. So sometimes, if the social pressure might have played as much of a role as I was the teacher, they may have just held each other accountable to say, "Oh, you're not doing what you've been asked to do," and they kind of socially expect that of each other. So then, when you see them in their young adult lives now, the way that they call each other out, you could be forgiven from looking in at it. Oh my God, they're harsh with each other. But what they are is they're hell bent on the truth. They're hell bent that they're going to say what it is in the moment, and their relationships are so strong that they can take it. And the moment that somebody is not able to take it, that's the aha moment, because you'll see them they'll seek out that discomfort, and they'll kind of then hold that accountable and say, hey, you're taking this personally rather than taking it about what it was about.
Right.
It's very interesting to watch.
It's amazing to watch at that age.
Well, it's the one is actually supporting the other. So, when these kids get to grow up and they actually then you own what you do. You embody it. You take responsibility for it and for yourself. And it becomes that it's real and it's grounded. And when you do that in community and you've learned how to take risks, you've learned how to challenge each other, the thing is, it gets very real. They get to be very real with each other. And there's nothing performative. There's no, well, I mean, ideally, we're still human, of course, but it's not whoever's, winning the most medals isn't necessarily the leader of the social element. They all contribute what they contribute. Somebody might have more strength in execution. Somebody else might have more strength in breaking it down. Somebody else might have more strength in the choreography. Somebody else might have more strength in saying, all right, this is how we all work together. Doing teams is a massive, massive part of that. I think that actually has to be said. And that's part of the reason that we continue to put such a big emphasis on teams. And of course, Cormac could talk about, the technique and the coordination and the synchronization of all of what came into that original lineup of Riverdance and what his mother was able to bring in and how people responded to that. Because that was part of what made that moment so exceptional. They were literally breathing together, and that had been forged. It's a fabulous, fabulous story to go back to. But we get to see that 30 years later. They're forging those connections, and when you do that together, I suppose it could be like singing in a choir or being a part of an orchestra. You do a team, or you do one of our shows, a Riverdance style, performance or line, or you're coordinating different choreographies with the body and not just with the steps. You're reliant on each other to the tiniest bit of a movement or just a fraction of a second, or, did you pass the right way? What goes right? What goes wrong? How do you solve that? And it's my favorite part, honestly, is watching how they rise to the challenge of a show and how they do that. It is a group freaking project. Because life is a group project. Right? You do it together, and what you forge through the failures, through the successes, through the challenges. I mean, it cannot be replaced with much other types of learning, and that's what makes the community, right? They go together.
Right.
It's interesting you touch on the shows, and we're deep in rehearsal now to do 11 shows in March, and it's a unique thing that's available to them. It's a unique part of our school, something that evolved, that wasn't necessarily an intentional journey, but it has become a very, very rewarding journey and a rewarding part of being part of the dance school. It's taken on its own life. Now, I'd say this year we have a very young cast. We have less experience than we've ever had before. So our rehearsals have taken on a different kind of intensity early in the process. And my description of all the time is like the steps are 10% of the work, but you can't get percent number 11, 12, 13, or 14, or any of the rest of them until you have the steps. They're like, you can't buy food in the grocery store unless you have the money to give to them. They won't just give it to you. You need, and it's a currency. I said, I don't mean to bring it down to money, but I said, it's the ability to do something is predicated on, have you learned the steps? So we've had a very big focus on that because there was a big gap to be made up, you could say. And it's some of it's a COVID gap in that, you just don't have a lot of kids of a certain age. We tried to respond to our community and be part of, creating a good environment for people, but that didn't necessarily mean that we were taking every new child in the door or that they were clamoring to come to us either. There just is a bit of a lost generation. And my colleagues that I speak to around the world, I was in Canada last week and speaking to lots of them. They said, yeah, we have a total gap in our school. We have literally very few kids of this age to this age.
because
they
of
just
COVID.
don't have them.
Yeah.
And that's the danger. And in Canada, their lockdowns were longer and they had a more detrimental effect on certain ages. So their school might have a lot of, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and then they've almost no 12-year-olds, almost no 11-year-olds, almost no 10-year-olds, because they were the 5-year-olds 5 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I think there still will always be competitors. There's always exceptions to that. The large competitive scene is very full and it's thriving. But you definitely do see the effect of it. And the shows for us they're a really big part of our enjoyment, and how the kids derive. It's like a parallel enjoyment to competition. Competition informs it to a certain extent because you do need a level of proficiency, and we use a lot of their material. We use the skills that they develop, but then it lives in a little side world, and they all become equal. They all become more equal, you could say, than when they go into a competition because they rank themselves. We do as human beings all the time. We put ourselves in a box. We put ourselves in a place, and the show puts everyone on a leveler. Now, there's obviously kids that are proficiency, and you might get to do other routines or something, but still they'll come together and they're all one group. A lot of the time it comes together in line dances. It comes together in group numbers where they come to co-depend on each other in absolutely equal measure. And it doesn't matter where this is the most reliable kid who knows every step, who never gets it wrong, or the kid who struggles. They're relied upon, and they know that their team relies upon them. And that's it's a powerful social leveler, because you see them and there's no, it doesn't matter whether it's the kid who won the Oireachtas or the kid who's never recalled. They're going to be laying in a heap on top of each other no matter what. And they're
happy
not
heap. That's a good thing.
a happy heap. They're not judging each other based upon, well, you this and you that. It's just not it just neutralizes all of that.
I would take it a step further, and actually again, group project, this is village mindset or a hive mindset. They all have a part to play, and they know each other's strengths and weaknesses so well that they make as that little village. It's this little microcosm of a larger picture. They know how to lean on each other when they need to. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They carry the ones through if they're having a hard time with this particular thing. And that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I had a very interesting situation a couple of weeks back with the in a rehearsal, and I was trying to involve some kids who had never done a particular routine. Not amazingly challenging, but there's a prestige to it, and they see it that way. And I kind of talked to the kids who were proficient and who had done it before, and I said, "Who do you think is capable?" And they kind of, a few obvious names came out, and then I could see that there was definitely there was potential for there to be a problem socially, and they kind of were looking at each other going, no, we really need to involve so and so. And this kid might have struggled, and it wasn't going to be easy, but their understanding and their awareness that she needed to be involved I was just sitting back going, oh my God, they get this. They get this.
That's
and it
so
was
cool.
It was so informative. And my youngest daughter, Kira, she was just giggling because she's like, they solved it before it was a problem. Because it had all the potential. You're of age, this is your social peer group, but maybe you're not great at picking up steps. They were like, you're in. And it was just a great unifying moment. And it struck me, and it'll stick with me for a long time.
It's wonderful.
I didn't have to go disappoint anyone, or I didn't have to pick someone. They just did it by themselves.
Yeah.
They knew this is the right thing.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's our job, right? As you'd say educators, you could say community leaders, is when they actually step up and lead, and you get to step back a little bit. Your job is to make yourself obsolete. I suppose it's like parenting, right, Julia? You're not there yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, that comes, and it has both sides to it. It's like, it's not about this top-down energy. It's you're literally growing and nurturing that next generation, and when you do it that way, it pays back in many, many dividends. It's the long, slow growing process, but I think that's what keeps, the joy in it. That's what keeps us, so unified. It's what keeps us, not attached to that external outcome. It's organic and it's real, back to that. And that makes it unique. The fact that we can do that in the middle of the Twin Cities and that it's the most incredible community right now, especially with so many challenges taking place, and that there is not a single person in the building that comes in. It's not just our dance school. Could be any of the elements that you could turn to for help or for support. And it's actually become that larger village
Yeah.
support mentality. And tell you what, it's good living. We're very blessed.
Well, this is actually a perfect segue because I really would love to use the rest of our time to talk about the Celtic Junction and how you all have made this incredible community. I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about, why you decided to do it, the various parts that go into the junction, what you're going through right now. I know we've heard a couple of, construction sounds behind Cormac. I'm not sure how much Krista will be able to remove. It sounded like Darth Vader was behind you at one point. But I was hoping you guys could kind of fill us in on what's going on.
If it's loud over there, I can start, Cormac. Just, give the little wave.
Sure, go
And
ahead.
you
There's a
get
jackhammer going right
that.
now. So
Oh, great.
It's, what's happening right now, what's so fortunate is, we've been running the Celtic Junction since 2009, so it's really 16 and a half years right about now, that we knew we wanted to have our own space for dance school, so we just found the trust actually, and the people that came in to trust us, they would know who they are, so that we could actually do that. We didn't have the financial independence to do it in those early days. And then, as Cormac mentioned, I'm part of the founding board of the traditional music school that's in the area, and it made perfect sense to put the two together. But we had actually tried it out while we were still teaching in the two downtowns, right on Hennepin and 6th in Minneapolis. Is the Hennepin Center for the Arts, a beautiful old Masonic building, actually. And then also in St. Paul downtown at the School for the Performing Arts. We had two different studios going, and we do different days at different times. But it became very difficult for families with young children, very difficult with sports games. So we have a fairly, big sports area. So when we chose this, it was a Google map that we looked at, and all the students dotted all around, right? And it turned out to be the Midway area, exactly 5 miles between the two twin cities. That made the most sense for us. And when we started, it was really to house the dancing and the music. And then Cormac, of course, he's like, well, we need a place for concerts because they're going to come. I want to produce music. I want to produce events. So Cormac can expand on this. And so we just kind of went into it, very open-hearted, thinking dance music, concerts, recitals, that all makes perfect sense. And it was something that really grew out of, I suppose, a need that we were responding to. It wasn't a plan, so to speak. The catalyst for the nonprofit element was the bequest of books from Owen McKiernan, who was the founder of the Irish American Cultural Institute. These books, it was about 3,500 different pieces. To make a library was a massive challenge. There's no way to do that privately. So we started the nonprofit really to encompass that. The concerts were a natural next part. Out of that, people asked, well, could we do classes? Could we not do more Irish language or maybe history or literature, even drawing classes? Right now, we're doing a lot of folk art, so embroidery, knitting. And it wasn't this overall plan where we say, this is what this is going to look like. It was really just us responding to what was coming up in the energy and in the community and trying to be good stewards of that energy and responsible for that. And each element, we've now kind of 4 parts of the Celtic Junction, and it's all based on the Bridget's Cross. I'm sure I've got one somewhere around here. It's got that central piece, and it's all put together by individual reeds that weave together into a core. And then there's 4 vectors that kind of come out of that, right? And so our programs are actually based around those 4 pieces of the Bridget's Cross. And that's the library is the first part, the concert's the second part, education. And then everything else was outreach. And we incorporated that and started to put that forward, and it's absolutely boomed and grown beyond what we ever thought it would be. So that is part of why we have jackhammers in the background, because we have to accommodate for not just a growing community, growing programs, but growing need. We live in a bit of a food desert area. It's a very industrial area, and so families come and they'll bring their little containers of, dinner that they make from home or stop at, one of the fast food stores around. There's very little place to gather, especially for families. There's a few breweries around, and they might be kid friendly, but what we're trying to do is incorporate more of an element of hospitality. And really, what is an Irish center without an Irish pub? That's the core, right? People are like, "Oh, I'm here for a concert." What they have to leave for dinner and then they have to go out for a drink most of the time. Now we do nonprofit licenses, but we're really trying to incorporate where we can bring in some hospitality, allow the library to expand a little bit, get some more office space because we have more staff, more engagement. And to do that, that core piece, we haven't had handicapped accessibility to our library and our classroom. We've provided other programming options, but that is a huge part of this. So what's happening right now, if Cormac gets the jackhammers, pause, we're turning the lobby and the entrance around so we can accommodate a lift, a 3-stage lift that would hit all 3 floors on our north side. So jackhammers are a good problem.
Yep.
It's pretty great.
Oh, indeed. I mean, this project is, if we were independently wealthy,
we are not.
The idea of there being hospitality would have happened a long time ago. The aspiration was there, and you could say that a community is not going to literally tell you word for word what they need, but what you're doing all the time is you're interpreting and you're listening and you're reading the tea leaves. And as soon as we kind of reached that decision in our mind, the rest has just been reactions and actions that have happened. And I feel as though the missing part of our formula is the hospitality side. We do a great job where we get permits from the city to do a bar every so often. And we have expanded our ability to do that through other nonprofits, facilitating that. It's a complex process. It doesn't work every time. There are events where we have to say to the public, we don't have a bar. We weren't able to negotiate a permit because there's limitations and timings and all kinds of stuff. The part about it is as Natalie said, Irish hospitality. The first thing is, put on the kettle, have a cup of tea or whatever it is. And even that has been challenging. So it's really to create a community gathering space that isn't about everything we do at present is about an event or is about a class of learning or is about a memorial or is about a piece of entertainment or whatever it is. And this other missing element of people just coming to meet, just come say, I'm going to go have a coffee and we'll meet at Celtic Junction. And there doesn't have to be a specific goal to it. And you might bump into someone else that you hadn't seen in a while. And it's really a community center is really what we're after. And right now, the economics of just doing that and the challenges of access and having staffing for something to be open, we've looked at every possibility. And the only way you can do it is by if you have some commerce, if you have some way and some purpose and an enjoyability. And as Natalie said, then you do have at 4:00 on any given weekday, families pour into the building to take music lessons and to go to Irish dance classes. And they're bringing everything, or else they drop their kid off and the parent goes to eat their dinner. And maybe the kid has had. So there's just a lot of discomfort around that. And there's a lot of coping mechanisms people use. And I think that we can make that better for people. Profit motive, commercial success, they're at the bottom of the list. They really are. The whole founding of the project was a facilitation to have an Irish dance school and an Irish music school in the same building. That's how it started. That has been that has always been core to the mission. The advancement of the project from just being Natalie and I as kind of caretakers or owners of the building to then the nonprofit, and Natalie directing the nonprofit and keeping that going, but growing the opportunities. And then from there now, stepping into a place where ultimately down the road, there has to be there will be an out point for Natalie and I. We're not going to live forever, but we want the center to be stable. And some of that just involves growth. It involves difficult conversations. It involves growing into what your community needs you to be. Mm-hmm. And so this little project we're doing at the moment seems like a lot of money for very little, but because it's preparatory, it's getting us ready for the next steps, which is to be able to build a hospitality. We had to reorganize what we renovated in 2011 in order to make the ergonomics. And ergonomics really make a space work. Mm-hmm. You know, your house, if things don't fit, there's a place for everything and everything has a place. That's what we're really struggling with. Nothing has a place in Celtic Junction right now. Anywhere you drop it is the relevant place. And then the next time you pick it up and you put it over there, well, it's still in the wrong place because it doesn't have a place. Yeah. So that's part of our journey here through this second phase in the lobby. The third phase will be the actual construction of the shell of the addition, which will wrap around a whole portion of the building. It's a big U-shaped. It'll create a new facade on the front of the building, which people won't drive by us and go, oh, I wonder what that place is. Yeah. I mean, it has signs on to tell you what it is, but they still don't get it. And I think it's in the communication of what it is. We have a 60-foot mural on the south side of the building, and people still don't get what it is. So we're working on that communication all the time. But in the next 3 years, we kind of hope that we will reach a point where it's not that the project will be complete, but it's like the hard infrastructure stuff will be there for the next 15 to 20 years of this community to use and grow, and it'll develop into what it needs to be. And ultimately, the non-for-profit will someday own the building, and they'll own the whole thing. And that's the strategy. I mean, later today, Natalie and I have a meeting with an organization called Taproot, and they are about their core mission is for nonprofit organizations to own their building. So we're taking the first steps in that direction through Taproot, through a loan, and then the next steps will come as we go down the road. But it's the baby steps that lead to it. So there's a lot in flux and there's a lot changing at the moment. And it is very exciting. But there's a lot left to do. And we have a very clear vision, I think, of what that is. And that vision is always little turns, always little changes, because you're listening to your community, you're listening to what's going on, and it evolves. You know, nothing stands still.
Amazing.
Well, that's actually part of its strength. Imagine a tree that's never challenged by the wind doesn't put its roots down quite as far. It's the trees that have the resilience that actually then, grow the strength. And if you want to, challenge, is our strength come? We've had a lot of different challenges, and we've had to grow into resilience. But it's hopefully a resilience that will long outlast us. I think part of the reason it's hard to say what it is because there's not a lot of models for what this is. We're doing something that's actually fairly unique. Now, there are other cultural centers, the strongest ones, of course, New York, Chicago, Boston, and we're in the Midwest prairies, right, in Minnesota. But it's not just for Irish immigrants. It's not just for the Irish diaspora. It's deep community gathering. It's for learning through cultural arts. And it's not actually based on any financial models that anybody's ever really made before, right? That's what doesn't make sense. Again, it's not a top-down thing. It's something that's grown very organically, like a vine, winding up and finding the light and gathering its strength. And we're just there to nurture and guide it. And that's its maybe its strength and its uniqueness. But that's also why it's a hard path, because it's not a path that's really been forged here in the same way. And it's a very unique building. It's not about the brick and mortar. It's a unique project, right?
Yeah.
And trying to explain that,
Yeah, we try and look for best practice, and we have camaraderie with other cultural centers. We talk about this. We meet annually. We just have a very unique community, and that's the glue.
We're just trying to put the hardscape, put the hard, walls in the right places so that all the rest happens. What the wall's made of, what the wall looks like. Yes, we have an aesthetic guide, but trying to explain to these builders, well, we're going to do this and that or that. And we're like, I don't care. Part of what it is like, we need that so the person can get from here to there efficiently, and it works. Whether it's a sheetrock wall, a brick wall, a block wall, nobody cares. And there are times where you have to care so that something has longevity and something has structure and we can fit it into a budget. But over the course of this last while, we've tried, with the help of a very wise man he's a CPA and a real estate investment specialist. And it took him 6 months to wrap his head around why we do this. Because every time he came at it from a traditional financing model, he would go, oh, that doesn't work. And then he'd try coming at it from another angle and he'll go, oh, that doesn't work. And what we were trying to get at was we were trying to show what the financial reality of this project is. And the financial reality is that it's based on passion and trust.
Yeah.
It's based on we are stronger together. The nonprofit and the LLC that own the building are incestuously linked, and one can't survive without the other because we have to be skin in the game. We all have to have, it has to hurt if it goes wrong. And I think that's been our strength, in that we care to an extent that failure is not an option. So you have to make it work. And if making it work involves either long hours or doing without or building it yourself, or, we've been very fortunate this last year. We had a very successful fundraising campaign, but it's 10% of the overall project, literally. And you get carried away and you go, wow, we've never had a fundraising campaign this successful. But then you realize how big the bigger ask is. But the bigger ask is a quarter of what so many people would expect it to be. But then we've found some builders that were willing to work with us. We found a builder right now who seems to get it and understands the dynamics of it. It doesn't make any of the decisions easier. It just means that you think that they understand what you're getting at, and they recognize that when you say something's $1,000 more, that somebody has to raise that, and that somebody donated that or somebody earned that. And it's not, they're not pie in the sky numbers. We're not dealing with the government gave us or this private foundation gave us. Like, every dollar matters. So we're very, very conscientious about where they go. And that's the skin in the game part, because for Natalie and I, it does actually matter. At some point, someday, we would like to retire. It's an aspiration, at least. It's an aspiration. And in whatever form that takes, but there has to be, there is nothing else in our life. This is what we throw in every egg and every bit of every basket is in this. So yeah, failure is not an option. It must succeed. So we're working at it every day.
Well, the two of you have been an inspiration to me for as long as I've known you. And I think that this conversation is going to be really inspiring to our listeners to hear not just how you're building resilience within your dance community, but for your bigger community and amongst yourselves as you pursue this project. I also think, like Natalie said, it's such a unique space. I remember, and just a unique community. I remember my first time walking into the Junction and the energy of it just it felt so at home. I could like feel my body settle and just was like, yep, this is a place that my body wants to be, that my spirit wants to be. And it's so cool to see you guys continuing that. So I think that it's going to be really neat for our Irish dancers and dance teachers listening this to hear what you guys are building, and maybe it'll inspire some of them to be thinking about, maybe someday they want to have a space to incorporate a music school, right? Maybe how are they incorporating their dance schools with their local musicians, right? How are they encouraging these connections? How are they bringing in the literature and other parts of, Irish diaspora community and everything like that, and the greater community. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Not at all. It's a total pleasure.
Thanks, you guys.
We might have to make this into a 2-part episode. Was the conversation was so robust?
Oh, yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks again. It means a lot to both of us that you came on and shared, and we're just thrilled to know you. So I'm glad you participated in this.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Planksty Podcast. Our technical producer is Christo Sween. Our managing producer is Julia Topper. Theme music composed and performed by Sean O'Brien. New episodes drop on the 17th of every month.